Malbec metro station in Brussels is the closest to the European Parliament and the European Committee of the Regions. Exactly 5 years ago, it hit the headlines of Europe and the world after a suicide bomber blew himself up on one of the trains, causing horrific death and mayhem in what is normally a busy but unremarkable metro station. The station will forever be associated with this painful outrage, but Malbec station does have happier associations. It is named after the Malbec stream, which nowadays runs underground, but which up until the late 19th century was an open-air stream crossing 4 districts of Brussels and dozens of ponds of water. A few of these ponds still exist, such as the one in the Parc Leopold, just east of the Committee of the Regions headquarters and at the foot of the Museum of European History. On any typical warm sunny day, before the pandemic, dozens of EU officials, school children, and parents with young toddlers could be seen enjoying picnics in the company of the local residents, the many noisy ducks and geese that go about their business in the Malbec pond, oblivious to the heated debates about the continent of Europe taking place just meters away from them. It was in this very same Parc Leopold that took place, nearly 1 century ago in 1927, the first encounter between two eminent men that would develop into a rivalry but also a friendship, and that would shape our understanding about the origins of everyone on this planet. But I'll come back to that story later in this letter. I'm Sean O'Kernin, and this is Letter from Brussels, written for the members of the Liberal Mayors Network, as well as any other interested listeners, and brought to you by the Renew Europe group in the European Committee of the Regions. Exactly 25 kilometers away from the Parc Leopold, heading southeast from Brussels, is the town of Wavre, and the man who was mayor of Wavre from 2006 to 2014 was reaching out last week to all of the mayors and subnational politicians of Europe. Today, this former mayor is president of the European Council, having been Prime Minister of Belgium previously, including on the day of the attacks on Malbec metro station and Brussels airport. He once said, "On that day, I learned what it is to serve your country. Your only concern is to protect your people." Charles Michel is one of the leading figures of the European liberal family, and he spoke last week at the plenary session of the European Committee of the Regions, the EU institution which represents the 1 million local and regional politicians throughout the Union. He urged mayors all around the EU to create opportunities for citizens over the next 12 months to describe what and how they want their union to be in the next 30 years. The reason for this is the imminent launch of what is being called the Conference on the Future of Europe. Michel told the plenary, "I am one of you. I have been a mayor, and I know how that very direct and personal contact that you have with citizens can be extremely useful for us working at the European level." So, mayors have an opportunity here to shape the future of the Union together with their citizens by channeling through to the conference the conclusions of those dialogues they organize in their municipality. The memory of the Brussels attacks is still present, 5 years on, and part of the plenary included a discussion with the European Commissioner in charge of Home Affairs, Ylva Johansson. She explained how radicalization happens. Extremists identify isolated, insecure people who are frequently young, and they befriend them, offer a community and a sense of belonging. Commissioner Johansson urged mayors to set up programs which spot such vulnerable people early and help them to feel that they belong first and foremost to their local community. Much of the European Commission's thinking builds on the work of the mayor of Mechelen, Bart Somers, who is now the Vice Minister President of Flanders, who was author of the COR report on prevention of radicalization and violent extremism, and who in 2016 won the World Mayor Award for his successful policies of integration of migrants. The Mechelen model is centered around three pillars. First of all, demanding a strict adherence to the rule of law by all citizens. Secondly, having zero tolerance for any kind of discrimination. And thirdly, a prevention of ghettos of any kind, because ghettos undermine trust, and preventing them requires schemes that break down social barriers and build trust. So, for example, there are so-called buddy schemes that pair a migrant with a local resident who helps the migrant meet people, practice the language, or helps with paperwork at the local administration. Preventing ghettos also requires working with schools to ensure the population is diverse and there is language support where necessary, so that students come in contact with other students from other backgrounds. And preventing ghettos requires investing in deprived neighborhoods to ensure the local residents feel that the city administration cares about them, rather than feeling resentment, which then radicalizers can exploit. The Mechelen model takes time, but it does work. Some people frequently ask if it can be extrapolated to larger communities. Well, one place that has invested heavily in making successful integration a reality at a large scale is the German land of North Rhine-Westphalia, capital Düsseldorf, and whose chair of its parliament's European Affairs Committee is Dietmar Brockes. A member of the German liberal FDP party, Brockes explained that North Rhine-Westphalia is proud to have people from all over the world in its population, and that they are stronger for it economically, culturally, and socially. He explained during the COR plenary that they have three programs in operation. One which identifies integration success stories. The second is a scheme called I, You, and We, which puts faces to those real-life successes. And the third is a coordinated prevention of racism, with on-the-spot monitoring and helping individuals in practical ways. And underpinning all of this program is a clear message that respect for the rule of law by everyone is non-negotiable. The debate in the COR plenary ended with the launch of the Paweł Adamowicz Award, which honors the mayor of the Polish city of Gdansk, tragically assassinated in January 2019. The award will recognize local leaders who fight for fundamental freedoms, solidarity, equality, and who combat hatred. One of the forms of hatred that Adamowicz himself opposed vigorously was that which in some countries in Europe, including his own, is manifesting itself in an increasingly aggressive way. It is the hatred against those citizens whose sexuality is different to what is considered the norm or is most prevalent among the human species. Indeed, resolutions passed in a number of Polish regional and municipal councils have led to these regions and towns being called LGBT-free zones. The premise of these resolutions is that sexual diversity is an ideology and not a biological fact, and that recognizing this diversity becomes an attack on religious tradition. In so doing, those resolutions are intimidating human beings simply for being different. So in December last year, the president of the Renew Europe group in the COR, François de Coster, mayor of the French town of Saint-Omer, sent a letter to 30 regional and local leaders in Poland, urging them to embrace diversity as a demonstrated source of strength for any community, and offering dialogue to pass resolutions that promote diversity. I quote a key paragraph from this letter. "We will always fight to defend religious freedom in the EU and everyone's right to their religious faith. But religious faith is something that one acquires and can change throughout life. Sexual orientation is inherent to one's nature. It is not a choice that one makes, and much less is it an ideology. If religious faith objects to the very nature of some human beings and requires them to live a hidden life as second-class citizens, then the law must intervene and guarantee their rights as full citizens. There cannot be different classes of human beings anywhere in the EU. The right to religious freedom does not extend to denying other human beings their right to be themselves and to live their life as freely as all other human beings. So that is why when the European Parliament passed a resolution last week calling the whole of the European Union an LGBTIQ freedom zone, the Renew Europe president, François de Coster, applauded and recalled during the debate with Charles Michel Article 2 of the Treaty on European Union, which states that the EU's founding values are respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including the rights of persons belonging to minorities. The rule of law itself has come under attack in recent years, and a recent report by the Dutch chapter of Transparency International is a major milestone that will help mayors and local administrations strengthen and protect the rule of law in their municipality. Under the direction of Loes Vies van der Laan, the report called Integrity Close to Citizens highlights best practices from around Europe in developing integrity systems in order to prevent corruption, favoritism, and fraud. The recommendations made in the report are extremely useful, focusing on where to position and how to resource the integrity system within a local administration, what objectives and priorities to give it, how to measure the quality of integrity, and how to connect the system throughout the administration. Brussels is much more than the EU institutions. It is the capital city of Belgium. It is home to more than 1 million people and has a rich history going back centuries. This brings us back to the story at the start of this podcast about the conversation that took place in Parc Leopold. In October 1927, a gathering of revolutionaries was taking place in the heart of the Parc Leopold. They were not political revolutionaries, but they were revolutionizing our understanding of everything. The gathering included Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, Erwin Schrödinger, Werner Heisenberg, and Paul Dirac, all of them among the top 10 physicists of the time, as well as Marie Curie, the first person to be awarded the Nobel Prize twice. A young Belgian priest who had recently received his doctorate in physics was also invited by the organizer and introduced to Einstein. Together, Einstein and the young Georges Lemaitre strolled through the park discussing a theory by the Belgian priest that the universe must be expanding. Although Einstein, who believed in fact that the universe was static, considered that Lemaitre's mathematics was perfect, he described the priest's conclusion of the expanding universe as abominable. Despite this strong disagreement, the two met many more times over the years and developed a friendship. Shortly after that first meeting at the Parc Leopold, Lemaitre took his idea one step further. He concluded that if the universe is expanding, it must have had at some point an origin, which he called the primeval atom. The genius of Einstein has been proved many times in many ways over the decades, but many scientific discoveries have also demonstrated that it was the young Belgian priest Georges Lemaitre who was right about the expanding universe and the primeval atom, and that is what today we call the Big Bang. If you ever get the chance, it's worth paying a visit to the Parc Leopold, strolling along the paths around the Malbec Pond, and discovering the plaque and photograph which commemorates the conference that Einstein and Lemaitre attended.